San Diego State was still a young West Coast college when it played host to the young, education-minded President John F. Kennedy. The year was 1963. The Cold War was at its height, and so was the Civil Rights Movement. It remains a shining moment for the campus, and one that came 5 months before Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas.
No country can possibly move ahead. No free society can possibly be sustained unless it has an educated citizenry whose qualities of mind and heart permit it to take part in the complicated and increasingly sophisticated decisions that pour not only upon the President and upon the Congress, but upon all the citizens who exercise the ultimate power.
Joining me to remember the visit is Seth Malios, chairman of San Diego State's Anthropology Department and the university's historian. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So President Kennedy was here to give a commencement speech. What did he say?
It's very interesting because he was campaigning and he had 3 stops along the way. And at American University, he talks about world peace. At Vanderbilt University, he talks about the Tennessee Valley Authority and about the power of the WPA and pulling the country out of the Depression. But when he comes to San Diego State, it's all about education and educational opportunity. He starts his speech by celebrating the Golden State, as he calls it, because California invests so much in education. And then he very cleverly uses that as a platform to talk about minority opportunity in education. Those are the points that he wanted to get across, the importance of education, not only for wealthy individuals, white individuals, male individuals, but for everyone in the United States.
How big of a moment was his speech for San Diego State and the city?
One of the great things about this event is it wasn't just for Democrats in San Diego. Over 250,000 people saw him in San Diego in a 24-hour period. It was a celebration of an icon. This was the height of his presidency. The summer of '63 was a moment where the country had come out of the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was a first victory in the Cold War. Civil rights legislation was about to be introduced. Even though there were still quite a lot of problems, this was a moment of enthusiasm, of optimism. And when he comes to the campus, he's celebrated, and the motorcade goes all the way down the 8 miles of El Cajon to the campus, and then Aztec Bowl, where he gives the commencement address, is just overflowing with students, with parents, and just with interested onlookers.
Now, you say that it wasn't just a moment for Democrats, but at that time, you know, this area was probably largely Republican. Did that in any way shape how he was received here?
That's a great point, because so many people fall into the trap of thinking California often votes democratically now, so it must have always been that way. But for decades, it was a Republican state. In fact, in 1960, JFK did not carry the state of California. The only time the Democrats carry California in many decades, from the 60s through the 80s, ironically, is '64 with Johnson. And it was the campaigning that JFK did during '63 that led to the victory in '64. The celebration, though, was that Kennedy represented something very different than just his Democratic Party. You mentioned he was young, he was good-looking, he had amazing oratorical skills. People who were at the event talk about the fact he glanced at his notes once and then smiled to himself and put them away, and then gives this amazing 14-minute address where he's quoting Jefferson and Thomas Locke very, very fluidly. And again, this is not his standard speech. He was giving a different speech at each locale. And I think that's part of the lore. One other anecdote that I love is that at these graduation ceremonies, they want you to wear the mortarboard hat. Kennedy really liked his hair, and he didn't want to wear a hat. He tries it on and then immediately puts it off to the side. And people who were at the event talked about the sun sparkling in his copper hair. And that's that celebration of an icon that's beyond mere politics.
Do we have anything like that today? Have we had a president visit San Diego State in recent times that compares?
We really haven't. JFK was the only sitting U.S. president to be at San Diego State in all of its history. Ronald Reagan did visit, but that was when he was governor of California. There have been other dignitaries. Eleanor Roosevelt came in '62, but Kennedy was the only sitting U.S. president. And it's funny, there's a list of everyone from the Surgeon General to Hillary Rodham Clinton to vice presidents. But I don't think anything compares to this singular moment.
Seth Malios, thank you so much for sharing this on the program.